The barrel of the rifle was cold against her chest, the night air trembling with silence. His finger hovered near the trigger, his breath steady, his eyes unflinching. She raised her trembling hands, her voice breaking through the stillness of the desert canyon. "Please don't shoot," she whispered, her words spilling out as both plea and promise. "If you let me live, I'll bear you children strong, and I'll marry you." Her voice echoed, fragile but defiant, drifting into the heart of a man who'd grown too used to pulling the trigger. Eli Carter was no stranger to blood. He had been a bounty hunter, a soldier before that, and for years his survival depended on one thing: never hesitating. The girl standing before him, hair tangled, eyes fierce even in terror, was the last remnant of a raid gone wrong. His orders were clear: no witnesses. And yet, something in her words struck through the hardened shell around his soul. She wasn't bargaining like a coward begging for her life. She was bargaining like someone who believed her life still had meaning. Eli's grip tightened. He could almost hear the voices of his past commanding him to finish it. But then he noticed her hands weren't just raised, they were shaking, not from fear alone, but exhaustion. Her skin was dirty, but her face carried dignity, pride, and an almost unbearable weight of hope. "What makes you think I wouldn't kill you anyway?" he asked, his voice gravel rough. Her chin lifted. "Because if you were going to, you'd have already done it." Something in you hesitated, and that's why I'm still breathing. Don't let your heart lie to you. You're not a killer, not tonight. The words stunned him. Few dared to speak to Eli Carter that way, fewer still lived after trying. And yet, he lowered the rifle, slowly, almost against his will. She stumbled forward, her knees giving out, and for the first time in years Eli dropped his weapon and reached to catch someone instead of harm them. That night, under a canopy of stars, Eli built a small fire. He gave her water from his canteen, jerky from his pack. She ate like someone who hadn't known kindness in a long time, yet every bite carried gratitude rather than desperation. She told him her name was Maria, daughter of settlers who had lost everything in the chaos of frontier raids. She had seen death, endured hunger, and carried loneliness like a second skin. Yet she spoke of life as though it was still worth living, still worth fighting for. Eli listened, something he rarely did. Her voice stirred the parts of him he thought were long dead: the memory of a home once warm, a brother once dear, a future he once imagined before war turned him cold. Days turned into weeks. What began as a moment of mercy became an unspoken bond. Eli escorted her back across barren plains, away from the ashes of violence. He could have left her at the first town, washed his hands of her fate. But every time he tried, his heart pulled him back. Maria worked beside him, gathering wood, tending fire, stitching his torn clothes with needle and thread borrowed from kind strangers. She never acted as a captive nor begged for favor. Instead, she carried herself like a partner, like someone who believed her word mattered. And Eli, hardened outlaw, began to soften. He found himself smiling at her laughter, caught himself staring when she sang softly at night. He remembered the plea that saved her life: "If you let me live, I'll bear you children strong, and marry you." But what stunned him wasn't the promise itself, it was that she lived every day as though she meant it. One evening, after miles of silence, Maria stopped walking. She turned to him, her eyes lit by the last glow of sunset. "You could ve killed me," she said, "and yet here we are. Maybe it's time you stop running from the man you're supposed to be." Eli froze. He wanted to tell her he was too broken, too tainted. But before he could speak, Maria reached out and took his hand, steady and sure. That touch undid years of solitude. He felt it redemption wasn't earned by bullets or fear. It was earned by choosing mercy, by letting love root where hate once lived. Their journey ended not with goodbye, but with a beginning. A small chapel in a frontier town witnessed the strangest of unions, the feared bounty hunter and the woman he once threatened to kill. And when she vowed to love him, for better or worse, Eli knew her promise that night wasn't a bargain for survival. It was a prophecy. Years passed. Children laughed in fields where gunfire once echoed. Eli's rifle gathered dust on a wall while his hands grew calloused from farming instead of killing. Neighbors who once feared his name now knew him as a man who built, not destroyed. And sometimes, late at night, Maria would tease him, whispering the words that began their story. "Please don't shoot. If you let me live, I'll bear you children strong and marry you." Eli would laugh, pulling her close, grateful beyond words that he chose mercy instead of death. The man who once lived by the gun found life through compassion, and the woman who begged for survival gave him a reason to live.